Hey everybody, welcome back. I finally made it to talk about Before the 90 Days, Season 6, Episode 5, Suspect. I hope you guys are doing good. I hope you had a good 4th of July. It's probably the best holiday I've had in ages. So, there was that. I hope everybody was safe. Um, so, I'm finally here to talk about this. So, let's start with Misha and Nicola. Something about that name, every time I hear it, I want to say it like, Nicola. Like those commercials for the Ricola uh, cough drops back in the day. Anyway, that's how I hear it in my head. So we go back to them. He's waking her up after her first night in Israel. And she appears to be very high maintenance even in her sleep. She has the eye mask and the headphones. But the thing that surprised me the most was when she removed her eye mask, she had full makeup and lashes done, right? So it's bright and early. It's 7:45 on her first day. Um, I'm not a fan of waking up that early, but I do it, so I understand. He's probably excited. So she does say that she did sneak over in his bed, and there was some heavy petting and kissing, but nothing God would be mad at them for. So she's all smiles. They move to Nicola, and he doesn't understand what heavy petting means, so he can't confirm or deny that. But it was nothing Jesus would be mad at, so they're staying holy over there. But he does feel love with her. She starts talking about how he's her first post-conversion relationship and the first relationship that she's been celibate in. So I'm sure he enjoyed hearing that. But that has to be weird. Relearning dating that way if you've never been that way. And he brings up that he did kiss her a lot. And she's like, yeah, kissing and hugging is good, but we need to be even more affectionate. And he's like, I need time, lady. Like, how much do you want from me? She wants 0 to 100, right? Um, he said he needs time, and that's what I was thinking too. Um, she's been there less than 24 hours, and it's been 16 years, according to him, since he's touched a woman. So, be patient. And in the interview, he says she wants his hand glued to hers 24/7, and he can't do that. But he just keeps telling her, okay, I'll improve on that, which is just placating. Like, yeah, dear, you're right. So she'll stop talking. I see you, Nicola. So, later they take off and they go, and he shows her Mother Mary's well that she used to go drink out of, and Misha's like, it's hard to wrap my head around that. She used to come here and drink. And he's like, yeah, and raise Jesus. I mean, it is pretty cool. I would love to go there. I'm interested in religion, even though I don't practice any. So I think that stuff's awesome. They decide to stop for some juice, and he's like, we first connected over Jesus, so hopefully showing her the Holy Land and these holy sites will make their relationship stronger. And, he's psyched about her being able to see the holiest of holy places. And she's like, yeah, but, I'm here to see you and figure out stuff with you. It's not just a vacation. Meeting your family's most important. And, obviously, we don't know if she knows about him not telling his mother and things like that. So he deflects that by saying, like, why do you want to meet her? You're obsessed with meeting my mom, and it's like you're going to marry her. And she's like, yeah, it's important that I meet your mother. He's like, it can wait. And she's like, well, okay, like, what about your brothers? And he's like, well, I have to see if they can come. And she's like, they don't know that I'm here? Like, do they know I exist? And he's like, well, one of them knows about you. So she's taken aback that, like, everyone in her life knows how important he is to her, who he is in her story, like, her finding religion and all of that. She told the guy at the grocery store that bags her groceries about him. She told her doctor. She told the people at church. Everyone knows about him. So I think he's pretty hurt. Or she's pretty hurt that he, just doesn't want to tell anybody. She even, she went to back to school night and told the kids' teachers and everything. She says she didn't know he was waiting to tell his mom. Or she did know that he was waiting to tell his mom. Being that she's a very traditional Arabic woman, she knew that she wouldn't approve of, like, her being a divorcee and having kids. But she's shocked that she's a secret from everybody. Is he hiding her because he's ashamed? She's thinking these things now, like, is he ashamed of my past? She says, like, it's important to her that they meet. And he's like, where in the Bible does it say you have to tell your brother you're getting married? Like, how messed up is it that he can justify anything because it was or wasn't in the Bible? Like, real life falls outside of that. And, we didn't have running water, electricity, nothing when they wrote the Bible. So I don't think they covered every aspect of life in there. And, you can go outside of the box. And then he basically laughs in her face because he doesn't know why she's so focused on meeting them. And she's like, if I'm telling you my feelings, don't laugh at me. And they have, like, a little back and forth, and it comes down to, like, they might tell him not to marry her. And he's like, well, she's like, do you think that's what's going to happen? And he's like, it doesn't matter what they think. And then she, like, comes in with the checkmate by saying, if you didn't care what they were going to say, you wouldn't worry about her meeting them. She's very smart. And she really, like, even later in the episode, she picks up on his, like, manipulation techniques or his deflection. And that's really good. Anyway, he's like, fine, tomorrow I'll call them. I'll tell them you're here. I'll put up a billboard in Nazareth so everyone knows. And he's just making a joke. And, she's offended. Later, when we see them, they go back to the hotel. And they're reflecting on the day. And he's like, wow, what a wonderful day. She's like, some parts were great, but yeah, I didn't love it. And as much as she loves Israel, she's not there to vacation. She wants to get to know him, get answers, meet his family. See, like, if what they've been building on is real. And she's also upset that he hasn't been honest with people about her or what he would consider negative parts of her. And I just want to know, like, why she has to feel judged or less than, because she has a little bit of a past. Like, if anything, it should be the other way around, because he just makes me sick. Like, he's never dated anybody. Maybe he should be embarrassed, right? Not that that's embarrassing, but she has to tell her friends he's a 46-year-old virgin who lives with his mom, and doesn't work. He worships God all day. And she is not only not embarrassed by that, she's, like, thrilled to tell people that she loves this man. And he's shaming her for having a past. Maybe he shouldn't be with her then. But he gets upset, like, why would she think he's embarrassed? Because clearly he is. And he's like, I didn't expect there to be drama with you. And now it's because his mom and brother. And then he's like, you need to go to sleep because you're talking nonsense. And then he's like, well, let me order you some food. Because he's just done with this conversation. And the only reason she's acting like this is she's tired and hungry, apparently. Because women can't, have feelings. According to this guy. So he's like, I'm done with this. She's like, well, what if I'm not done? He's like, well, you're never done. You're never done talking. And he's like, you're most cute when you're mute. I knew I hated this guy like 2 episodes immediately when I met him. Who says that? That is so rude. Like, nobody's ever said that to me. But she does say, you're just deflecting and making bad jokes, so you don't have to talk about this. And, she's like, you're not going to sweep my problems under the rug. And he doesn't think he's doing that. It's just not important to him. And he's like, he wants to show her he's the man, and she can't control the man. And I almost couldn't even say that without wanting to vomit. Like, he's the man, okay. I guess it just, this is triggering my trauma from my mom's boyfriends or stepfather figure, don't breathe my air type of thing. Like, get out of here. But he just wants her to sit quiet and say nothing and smile and nod. And she just wants a serious conversation. And she's like, look, if you're placating me so I stop talking, this is going to come up again. And, as horrible as this behavior is, she chalks it up to his no experience with women and his lack of skills dealing with emotion. And, she's making an excuse for it. That behavior is too triggering for me to hang out with. So, if she can handle it, more power to her. Then we meet back up with Tyray. And I started this off interested to see where he's at. Maybe I'm in a better mood this week. I do he's such a sweetheart. And he really doesn't deserve it. And I think it's just hard for me to see that. And I'm a natural healer, so I just want to help him. But I do want to see how he's doing, right? And I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's see Tyray. Even though this is MTV's Catfish. So, him and his sister are hitting up it looks like a farmer's market. They have food there. And he's like, it's just, my life has been crazy this couple weeks. 2 weeks ago, he's booking tickets to see Carmella in person. And now he's being told, a man named Christian is Carmella. He's still struggling, and he still feels like it's a misunderstanding, and how could 4 years be a lie? This poor, unfortunate soul, Tyray. He said he watched Catfish and knew the signs, but if he had, he would know that people do this for years. Years. Anyway. So he tells his sister he hasn't really been out since he found out everything. And it's weird not having her messages, and he's feeling the void in his life. It's hard not to keep checking his phone. And he has cried about this. And that's understandable, and he shouldn't be embarrassed by that because he is mourning a loss. Whether or not she's real, she was real to him. And he needs to grieve that. It has been 4 years. You don't talk to someone every day for 4 years and they just disappear and you don't feel that. Even if they're a liar. Even people who are in relationships and get cheated on. That's why we go back to them sometimes. It's hard. So he is feeling normal things. And he's like, he hasn't gotten any messages back, but the messages has been opened, so he knows that she's seen them. And the sister's like, do you want him to respond? Because that's not her, that's Christian. And he's like, well, I still think it might be her. And at this point, I take back what I said earlier about being excited to see him, and maybe I was in a bad mood, because this is just frustrating. And he is like a brick wall that you cannot get through to. And I don't know why, but it's frustrating for me. And I think he's great, and he's so sweet, and I feel so bad for him. But I need him to, start accepting something. So anyway, the sister's like, you still have hope? And he's like, well, yeah. Like, what if she went to prison? And I'm like, a pen pal. She had me as a pen pal. And the sister laughed. She can't help it. And I couldn't help it. We all had to laugh. Even he was laughing. So basically he's like, what if she was in prison and then she got out and now her husband found out about us? And the sister just wants to shake him at this point. Because now she's a pen pal from Christian. She's a pen pal from prison. She's like, that's not logical. He's like, no, it's possible. And she's like, dude, you're delusional. And they pull her aside for her little interview, and she's just shocked. I think we all are. And to me, this is the sign of a man sitting home stewing, and I think it's called catastrophizing. It's like catastropheizing. It's an anxiety term, and it's basically coming up with so many worst case scenarios and believing them to be true. And he's also just making up anything to make her be real. He can't accept it. She's really gone. And the sister's like, look, I know you're making excuses and living in delusion, but I got some tea for you. So after she did the reverse image search, he's made no progress. But she did her own research and she found some things. But now she's a little worried to tell him because he's being vulnerable. He thinks she was in prison or something. She doesn't want to break his heart worse. As a fellow sister, sometimes it just be like that. And we have to protect our siblings, even when it's hard. So she tells him she found an escort page. She read the real explicit bio on the website and the places she's from. One of them was California. So we all know next they need to just video call her so she can tell Tyree that it hasn't been her that she's talking to. That's exactly what Neve would do. I'm channeling Neve. So he gets mad and he's like, but she said she's in Barbados. And, it wasn't that was her, And the sister's like, well, there's a number. Let's call it. And Tyree pulls a Tyree, gets up, says, I'm gonna walk home, leaves, freaking out, cussing, huffing, puffing, throws his phone in the grass. He's mad his girlfriend is on an escort site, and how being on an escort site is something you would tell your partner, and how she just lived down the street. And he's talking about this like she's a real person he's talking to and was betrayed. This girl on this site is not your girlfriend from Barbados. He stole the pictures from this site. And this site, this probably isn't even real. You don't even know these days. He's like, we should have met if she lived that close. He's talking about her like she was his neighbor. So he sits back down with LaShanti and he's like, I do appreciate you telling me because that's not the kind of girl I want to be with. And I'm like, well, why is he like? I guess if you don't want to date an escort, that's your choice, but don't make it like being that kind of girl is a bad thing. Like, don't, you know, shame her. He's like, how am I supposed to tell my mom that I'm dating an escort he thought was in Barbados but lives in Bakersfield? Like, how are you going to tell your mom it's been a man this whole time and you, like, this isn't even worse. This isn't, telling your mom that is actually better than the truth. But anyway, now he's confused about Christian. And she's like, that's him. He's using her photos. And he's like, no, he's her pimp. And the sister just like on her face the whole time watching. You could tell this is painful for her. And she needs him to accept it. But she doesn't know how to help him. So they decide to call the number finally. I don't think that they recognize this, but it's definitely a Text Now app, which is like an app you download on your phone, and you can pick a phone number from your area or whatever area code you want. And it's basically through the internet. So if your phone gets shut off, or you're scamming people, or you need just a temporary phone line, you can download that and you just use it on Wi-Fi. And my ex used to use that all the time because he couldn't afford to pay his phone bill. So I would recognize the voicemail when they called it. So then he texted the number. I saw your ad. You look familiar. Then he Googles the number. A lot of numbers came up connected to an escort site. He wanted to find out more about her, but not this. But he wants to connect with her to get the truth. I'm sure these ladies on these sites do not use their actual phone number for this business. People can get crazy out there and develop very unhealthy attachments to people, and that's how they end up unsnapped or stalked or deadly women. So escorts using Text Now is probably standard, I would think. But that's all for Tyree. I'm hoping for the best for him. I hope he finally gets some closure. I hope that they can talk to the real Carmela and she could just flat out tell him. I think that's the best course of action for now. So, moving on from that, we're going to talk about David and Sheila because we need some cute wholesomeness to wash down the catfish. So, they're still in their little, or not still, they're in their little quiet cab ride. And she's like, ask him what he thinks. He types out, it looks different and it's not the same in America. And like the traffic in the Philippines really scares him. And I hear that a lot when the Americans go to other countries, especially India on this show. I think that was even something talked about in Amazing Race. So I'm not surprised he feels that way. But he's there and he's holding her and he feels peace. So that's great. The things he felt in video are even stronger. They decide to go get food and they're trying to communicate. And she's trying to see what he would like to eat. But they're like relying on texting. And at this point, she gets a little nervous that communicating is going to be difficult. And they're just so cute while they're in the little restaurant. And they just decide to get the same thing. He's like, I'll have what you're eating. He notices that this restaurant's different than the ones in America. It appears to be less sanitary, more run down. He said if he was home, he would definitely think twice about eating there. But he's also going to keep an open mind. And our man David is hungry. So, aside from being hungry, he's really got to pee. So she tries to find him in the bathroom, and the man there is trying to unlock the bathroom with like a bobby pin or something, and that doesn't work out. So they like step outside. She takes him to the back. He goes and pees behind the building. He didn't really want to, and that's not how he pictured their first day, but it was an emergency. You know, when you gotta go, you gotta go. I've done it. I've had to pee in a parking lot. I was also drunk, but you know, it happens. I'm sure we've all been there. So they go back in to wait for the food, and he like apparently set his coat down a little aggressively. And she's like, "Are you mad?" And she's like, you kind of set your coat down, um, hard, you know." And she tells him why she thinks he was mad, and good for her. It's hard for me to do that. So he says he isn't mad. And dating someone from a different culture is hard, but a deaf man from a different culture is even harder. She really has to think about what she wants to say and how to express it. She can't just like talk and say what she's thinking. So she knows that they love each other, and eventually communicating will get easier over time. So their food's done. They leave. They go back to the hotel. It's been a long day. David's ready to rest, sleep with Sheila. He knows he says it's harder to communicate in person than online. But he's waited for 2 years to sleep with her, touch her, cuddle. So he's excited. They get to the room, and there's these two little twin beds set up in like I Love Lucy style. And she's like, "We need to move these beds together." He was on it. He got it done pretty quickly. So all of a sudden, there's a giant bug on the floor. A piece of the wall falls off. He's like, I booked this hotel because it was cheap and guaranteed comfort. But they lied. you know, it's a little ugly and run down. And he's right. I'm definitely a princess. I would have a hard time staying there, especially after the bug. I probably would have left. Can we go to another town? Can we sleep in the van? Not because of their culture, but because I am high maintenance when it comes to that. Also, I've had to use the bathrooms at the gathering of the Juggalos, and that gave me nightmares. So, it's not the romantic setting he envisioned for their first night, but he has her, so everything's good. They're eating, he's trying to say he's hungry, she doesn't understand. I do notice that when he starts signing, he like stares at her to see if she understands. And like I think he knows she doesn't, but he looks at her like it should be common sense. Like you don't get it. I just wish he could, find a way to communicate better with her. It looks painful. But he literally grabs a handful of rice and shovels it in his face. And that's when she starts talking about how he's a very loud eater. And, she thinks it's because he can't hear himself eating. But she doesn't mind. And then after that, he's ready for bed. And she's talking about she's never been with a deaf person. And she's nervous. She doesn't know what to expect. So they get in bed and they cuddle and get close, and it kind of looks like he like tries to tell her to take out her hearing aid thing, and she like covers it real fast, and I was like, no. So I don't know if she's self-conscious or she wears it all the time or what that was about. It happened real fast, but I did notice. And he's like, I know it's been a long trip and he should shower and change, but it just feels really good being with her. And It's been 3 years since he was intimate. He's excited to share that with Sheila. I'm excited to hear about it next week. I'm pretty sure this is my favorite couple because I think that they're really good together and they could actually work. And I hope they make it through. So catching back up with Riley and Violet, he wakes up, he's still disappointed that, he wasn't made to be a priority for Violet. She has plans today. He feels like he's more committed to this than she is. So he's in his hotel and he video calls his friend Tiffany. She's like, how was it? Did you get butterflies when, he saw her? And he's like, she's beautiful, way beautiful, couldn't ask for more beauty. And how he's also disappointed that she had plans today and he's alone on his first day there and he won't see her till tonight. And he's on her time now. He has to wait to have this conversation he wants and ask his questions. Tiffany is like, she knew you were coming. You should be the plan. Like, when do you get to see her place and meet her daughter? Meet her daughter that you bought a gift for. The gift bothers her. It definitely bothers her that he bought the daughter a gift, but I think he's just a nice guy. And he basically said, at her leisure, he will get to do these things. And he hopes that he gets to meet them and, her family soon. And the friend's like, you need to be more demanding. Stop being a wuss. And, it seems like she's pushing you to the side. And maybe there's someone else. And he agrees. And, he brings up her not deleting the dating app, even though she had him delete it. He's still offended at the way she reacted to the pearls he got her. She treated it like they were basic. And she did treat it like they were basic because apparently they farm pearls up and down Vietnam, according to her. So it wasn't like a special thing to her. She could have, been a little nicer about it. Plus, she doesn't like pearls. Some people don't like that. Like, if someone bought me, something I don't like, I'm like, oh, great. The friend's like, take back them pearls, He's like, I can't. See, but she doesn't know about the other gifts I brought. And he's like, I brought a ring. The friend wants to see the ring, and he shows her. She's like, it looks like a band. He says, no. Basically, it's like a promise ring, right? High school stuff. Commitment ring. But just because he bought it doesn't mean she's going to get it, right? I wasn't a fan of the ring. I thought it was a man's ring at first. But they didn't show that close of a look. But maybe she'll like it. She loves his taste so far. But apparently, she has to earn the ring by showing him she's serious and committed like he is. The friend is warning him to be cautious. He just feels like they got off on the wrong foot, but they're going to work on it and make it work. But then, turns out Violet changed her plans that she had with the school to spend time with him, and she invited him to Independence Palace. So he hops, skips, and jumps his way over there. And she's like, I want to teach him about where I live and her culture and while he's here. So she takes him to Independence Palace. It's like where the president lived for 20 years during the Vietnam War. And they had like a tank there. Apparently the tank is the one that took down the gate and caused victory. I'm definitely not a historian, so if you want to learn more about that, Google it. He's like, why'd you change your mind about spending time with him? And she said she felt bad leaving him. He's like, well, yeah, do you understand how it felt for me to come all this way and he's just an afterthought? And she's like, well, how do you feel now? He's like, look, I'm asking if you understand how I felt. Like you didn't prepare for me being here. And of course, she doesn't want to talk about it. She's like, we're here to look at tanks, not have a conversation. He's going to have to ask her to schedule a time for the conversation when she'll approve of it. When will the stars be aligned for me to ask you questions? So he's taken aback by her lack of emotion for him and his feelings, but he caters to her. He asks her to spend more time with him now that he's here. He's glad that she thought about it and changed her mind because she's starting to realize all the effort he did go through to come here. And she's realizing, she doesn't want to be in a relationship, so she's going to have to put in more effort. And, he's hot, his knee hurts. She's like, why didn't you tell me your knee hurt? You're hurt. And he's like, well, I didn't think you'd respect me because she likes strong men, and he didn't know how she would react to him having a hurt knee. And she's like, this is why she said they would need more time in person because it's different face to face. And he's hopeful but worried because he doesn't know what she's going to do. She might just derail the whole relationship. It sounds like they both hide a lot from each other. Like he hid his injury because she only likes strong men. And Lord knows what she's hiding. Hopefully we'll find that out. But if they really want true love, they need to be transparent with each other and open and honest. And she seems very closed off. I don't know. Hopefully they spend more time together so we can see more footage of that. I'm glad, they went to the park or wherever. The palace. That was nice. They gave us a little bit of Amanda and Razvan this episode, and I could have done without it. I'm kind of sick of them already. Episode 5. Anyway, they're in the car after the park fiasco, and she's like, do you understand why I'm upset? And, in her little interview, she says her first couple of days there, he hasn't been considerate for her. Like, is she kidding? Did she miss the store trip where he grabbed every ingredient off the shelf to see if she would eat it? The fact that he brought her to a park after, when she got there, she was like, oh, are there any nice parks around here? He put in the effort to consider getting a visa so he could go see her right away. That's pretty considerate. That he tried to make her pancakes, and she was awful about it. She was so mean to him. So I think he's been very considerate. And I like to think that I'm a patient person, but even I couldn't handle that woman at the store last week. Like, if you're hungry, you're an adult, tell this man what you like, and he can find it for you. Or you can find it yourself. So, anyway, she's confused because over the phone he was so caring and listened. And now she just doesn't understand, he's so dismissive about her feelings. Especially about him kissing someone else. She's like, maybe you shouldn't have chose to take a business call. And he's like, well, I didn't think you were going to be so upset. It wasn't in his control. He wasn't trying to exclude her. And she's like, well, it was in your control to call him and say you're going to kiss a girl. He's like, basically what I got out of his reply is that he's testing her to see if she can handle it. Because one day she might wake up and decide she can't handle it. He's afraid of that because that's what happened to him in the past. And he starts crying because he loves her and he doesn't want to be hurt. He's really trying. He has went above and beyond to make this woman comfortable. And then he talks about, his ex again. After that toxic relationship, he didn't date for 2 years. And now he feels like Amanda is pushing him away intentionally. And she tells him she feels like he isn't listening to her feelings. He thinks that she's mean and disconnected from him, and that's true. So they both apologize, and she's realizing that she came here with these huge intentions of, is he going to be great for me? Is he going to be great for my kids? And she's being too hard on him. Like, do you think like she's finally understanding that? If she really isn't okay with him kissing another woman for his career, she needs to not pussyfoot around that, because he is right. Like, one day she will wake up and can't handle it. Like, she needs to be honest with herself that bothers her, and give him the chance to decide what he wants to do with that. So they make up in the car, they kiss each other, they're back in love. All the tears have stopped for now. And that was all we had from them this week. Next, I want to move on to Gino and Jasmine. Gino is off getting a beer. I felt like he was being too talkative and friendly to the bartender. But, Jasmine isn't around, so that might be okay. Unless she pops around the corner. He was friendly, so he said hi and ordered a beer. He's only been here for 2 days, and they just aren't getting along. She blew a gasket about the prenup. She's saying so many hurtful things to him, especially about her ex. She's saying the engagement's off, and he doesn't know if she means it or if she's just saying that. Maybe Gino should take his power back and leave her. So he tells the bartender he's here visiting his fiance, and they got into an argument, so he needs a beer, and he tells the bartender about the prenup, and she's on Jasmine's side. She says it's in their culture, like very few people do a prenup. She's like, well, if you won't share all of you with her, why would she want to share all of her with you? And he's like, but my assets, I worked all my life. She's like, well, yeah, but you're joining your life, and a prenup isn't a positive thing. I'm convinced they paid this lady to have a rational conversation with Gino about this, because Jasmine never could. So, in his interview, he says it's not about him not trusting her. He gave her space to calm down and for him to clear his head. So, meanwhile, Jasmine's off to dinner with her sister. Why she wanted to come to this packed public restaurant to cry her eyes out is beyond me, but that's where she chose to do it. She's explaining to her sister that, like, her past divorce, she was left with nothing. She feels like history is repeating itself. And I don't know why she is acting like he's divorcing her when he specifically said he didn't want to leave her with nothing. And he doesn't want to leave her at all. So she basically thinks he wants to take her to the U.S. and then if they divorce, he's going to leave her on the street in a strange country with nothing. And that doesn't sound like Gino. Like, he would at least get her a plane ticket and a toothbrush and some hair samples to help her on her journey. So the sister, who appears to be like 17, she's very young. She's like, Jasmine, you're suffering in this relationship. And she's like, she feels abandonment from Gino. Gino's her world and her protector. And now she feels like he doesn't trust her and he won't protect her. If she would have read his prenup proposal and listened to him, she would have seen protection for Jasmine right on top. He said, this is to protect Jasmine. her sister, is like, look, there's someone out there who will give you all the love. And she's like, no, I don't want to leave Gino. I just can't push a button and stop loving him. And the sister's like, well, what do you get from loving him? You're suffering. Like, did the sister forget that he's paying for their $3,000 a month apartment? Like, you want to give that up, sister? So, Jasmine says her worst fear is someone not loving her and rejection. And she really, needs to see from Gino that she's worth fighting for. She's, hysterically crying to her sister about how she doesn't want to lose him. And the sister is sitting there very, blasé. I don't know what to tell you, Jasmine. And she's like, it's my fault. I always mistreat him, and I'm so mean to him. And what if I just sign the paper? And it's like, yes, sign it. That would literally solve everything. And probably help your sex life, too. And her sister's like, here, drink some water, calm down. That's the trick. Gino can give Jasmine water when she's upset and crying. Here's some water. Perfect. So she really doesn't want to lose him. Later, we see them. Jasmine's getting herself ready. She's making sure she looks and smells amazing. She puts perfume everywhere, just in case. She's scared she's losing him. So she's willing to listen to him without yelling. So we'll see how it goes. Gino's waiting there. He's nervous. He doesn't want to lose her either. But he needs to be able to stand up for himself. And, they have to be able to have these difficult conversations. So she arrives. She sits. She apologizes for the horrible things she said to him and blames it on her personality. So basically, this is how I am. You're going to have to deal with that forever. She doesn't want to lose him over money. He's trying to talk, but he's shaking. And all of a sudden, he's like, you know what? We'll forget the prenup. Of course he did. He was so close. If he would have just stood his ground this one time, he would have got it. But he says, he talked to the bartender, and he realizes it's just cultural differences. So he's like, I'll forget the prenup, but you need to stop saying such mean things to me. So she goes into justify mode. It's like, I don't feel I'm the most important person to you. I'm so loyal and so in love with you. And, she starts giving him kisses. She's so happy. He forgot about the prenup. Then we find out in her little interview that she was going to sign the prenup. But she's glad that for once in her life, she kept her mouth shut and let him talk. And she sits there and she's like, man, I was thinking all day, would you consider getting a will? We all know she didn't just come up with that today. All day she was thinking about she was going to lose him and she can't murder him because there's not a will. But Gino's like, are you kidding me? She's like, well, what if you die and I'm alone in the States? And he's like, we're literally getting married, a few months. And you're thinking of me dying? They have 90 days to get married after she goes to the States. So if he dies within that time, I would think she would want to go home. But, he's really shocked that she would ask that. He's like, if something happens to me, you'll be with my family. She's like, yeah, people that don't even like me. She's worried his family won't accept her. She wants a will to show her that he'll protect her always, no matter what. Money isn't everything, Jasmine. And you should be lucky that you got away with this prenup thing. Because we were all hoping that he would stand his ground and make you sign it. And now he's going to see that you were going to give in. And he was so close. As a fellow passive person, sometimes you just gotta stick it out, man. And, at least see what they say. He was too afraid to lose her. And they have so many problems. And for her to immediately bring up her will idea after she gets her way on this, bad form. She should have waited until like day 3 and brought it up. Like, oh, that really scared me. I thought I would lose you. Something. But, yeah, red flags all around, waving in the wind. Nobody sees them. Alright, well, thanks for making it this far. We're gonna round it out here with Christian and Cleo. He's getting ready to head out to London. He's thinking, meeting in person will help them gauge if they're compatible or not. As far as I know, he's told her he's pretty sure, so we'll see. He meets up with Tom and Jonna. Tom's like, you want a Bloody Mary? And he's like, nah, give me a whiskey on the rocks. I'm thinking, that's a stiff drink for breakfast. And I put, probably to help him with his uncomfortable conversation he's about to have. He says he's known Tom for 10 years, and they have a lot in common, such as music and dating the same women. However, Christian's never dated Jonna. So, them three are sitting there. They're like, man, we can't drink like we used to. So this is the breakfast after the night from the last episode, which explains the drinking, hair of the dog and all that. And then they're just having this conversation of like, oh, they used to be able to drink so much more, and they definitely drink more than the recommended amount. And I think this is most likely because they're in Minnesota and we got to keep warm somehow. So drinking helps. The other way to stay warm in Minnesota ends up with us being pregnant. So drinking's all right. Not that I recommend it. I actually haven't drank in over 2 years, but I used to. And I didn't stop drinking because of addiction. I stopped drinking because of my surgery. Anyway, they ask if Cleo drinks, and he's like, well, not as much as us. So the friends are in their interview, and they're like, we've been hearing about Cleo for a couple months. He's been with her longer than most people he's dated, but they're skeptical. Christian's like, he never thought he would be traveling halfway across the world to meet someone, let alone someone who's trans. They ask if the family knows she's trans, and he's like, well, he didn't tell them until a couple days ago. He told a couple of them, and they, told other family members, because I guess there's no secrets in family. My family is different. Like, if I tell my sister something and I say, please don't tell mom, she's not going to do it. And if she does, I'm going to be upset. So, anyway, in his family, some people had a lot of questions. Some people were, like, outwardly antagonistic. He has a very close family, 2 sisters and a brother. He lives with his brother. He sees his nieces and nephews a lot. His family does know that he's been seeing someone overseas, and they were supportive until they found out about her being transgender. And it's caused a rift with some of his relatives, and some have said really hurtful things about his relationship. Like how she's pretending to be a woman, and he'll be affected in public. And his family's just not at a point to accept this. He's upset by their reaction, and he's like, I got good friends, and they're the family I choose, and he isn't stuck with his family if they aren't accepting. Tom was not surprised at his family's reaction. because they're older and they have older views and they don't understand being trans is not a crime. But I don't think that's all older people, though. Like, I know older people who are very accepting of everybody. But he's also saying it's going to be harder for Christian to distance himself from his family than he thinks. But, he just hopes eventually they can be accepting. And he thinks that, there may be a point where he has to choose Cleo or his family. And that's not going to be easy. So across the pond, we catch up to Cleo. And it's 24 hours before he's going to arrive. She got an Airbnb for when he's here because she has a roommate, they need privacy, all that stuff. She brings her emotional support cats. They help her with her anxiety. But she's never introduced them to a new daddy, so Christian better love them, even if he's a dog person. So she does know about his family finding out and their reaction to her being trans. That does worry her for their relationship. Before Christian, he was open to, they were excited. I'm sure they talked about when they were going to meet at the airport. I'm sure they were going to kiss. All of a sudden, he's saying, he wants to wait on kissing and holding hands and kissing at the airport and in public. And, Cleo feels he's changing because of his family's reaction. Like, he didn't say that, but it's, the vibe. And she's used to getting rejected and hurt. And, he isn't used to being rejected for his gender identity or who he wants to date. So she isn't sure he's going to be able to handle the haters and the people who talk crap. She's worried, like, can he handle this? She's also dealt with a lot of rejection she doesn't want to deal with anymore. So, meanwhile, Christian's all packed and ready to go meet Cleo. He's saying on one hand he's excited, and on the other hand he's disappointed in his family's reaction. So his friend Tom is taking him to the airport, and he's like, are you excited? If he's excited to hug and kiss her. And that's where he gets weird. He's like, well, it's my first time meeting someone. You wouldn't go on a first date and just, kiss someone. And Tom's like, didn't you guys talk about it? And he's like, well, yeah, we did. He did tell her, and she got weird about him wanting to wait. And he's like, does this have to do with your family? And he's like, yeah, it's hard to not care what they think. And now, what they're saying is starting to get to him. And he's, not as excited as he should be to go. So maybe he shouldn't go. Of course not. He doesn't need to do this. He can tell her right now and save her, the pain of doing it in person. So, he's not sure what he's going to do the first time he sees her in public. He's going anyway. His friend is surprised he's having doubts because that isn't like him. And, if Tom was Cleo, he would be worried too. He says, the point is to see if they have chemistry outside of talking. But this relationship's going to be really hard. He's in the airport. It looks like he doesn't even want to be in the airport. He's at a funeral parlor or something. He says, when Cleo asks him if he's ready to date someone who's trans and autistic, he says that he is. But really, he isn't sure. And they're different on a lot of levels. What scum? If you're not ready, don't tell her you are. If you're not sure, don't make her an experiment. If you're going to let what your family thinks about that affect you, you shouldn't have done that in the first place. If you knew that you're not attracted to men and you're heterosexual AF, Don't do that to this wonderful person. She is beautiful, despite everything she's been through. And she has all this hope, and he's telling her he's sure and he's ready. And of course, he could be with a trans autistic person. Meanwhile, deep down, he knows he's not, and he's going over there just to see. That is so not fair to her. But, he ends it saying it's new to him, but they have a connection he hasn't felt in any woman before, so he's willing to take the risk. I feel like he got swooped up in the fantasy of who she is and her, and he got to know her personality. But when it comes to physical, it's starting to hit him now what he's doing. And it's really not fair. And he better not make her cry. That's all I gotta say about that. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I thought it was alright. I felt like they had so many couples on there. I don't know why we needed the 5 minutes of Amanda and Razvan. I did see there's a new couple next week. I always love fresh meat. I doubt they're here to replace Tyree, because we still haven't got a conclusion on that. It's been 5 episodes. It should have been over in the first 2. But he's still a nice guy. So I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you for watching. And please like and subscribe and comment. I love all of that. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.